So the next bit is the close of the interview. You've turned up at the interview, you're really well prepared. You've researched the company, competitors, the job, the product, there's nothing you didn't know. You look $1 million, the meeting's opened, you've hit them with a great little elevator pitch, you've turned up with your portfolio, you've probed the interviewer for his needs, you've demonstrated against each need how you can successfully solve the problem, and we've got to the end of the interview. I would say 1 in 10 candidates, if that, close interviews properly. In fact, I think that the sales profession itself has changed quite considerably in the last few years, and people simply aren't closing in general in life. And as I said earlier on, rising tides do float all boats. And a lot of people are succeeding right now because they live in the rising tide, not because actually they're asking the hard questions in their selling situations. But that is a whole other argument that you can watch on A Pint with JG. Very few people do this bit properly. And one of the biggest complaints I get when I ask the client, why didn't you take the candidate forward to the next stage? Often the client will say to me, he was all right. He had me eating out of, I was eating out of his hand, and then he didn't close me, and he didn't move the meeting forward to a next conclusion. And these clients aren't talking about an aggressive nailed down close here. They're talking about the candidate's ability to create what they call in spin selling a continuation or an advance of the sale. They advance it in a solid way. So first things first, the first thing you do not ask is, what are the next steps? Do not ask that in an interview. Why? Because in a tactical, fast-moving process like this, it might work out in the field in strategic sale, particularly if you sell into healthcare or public sector. But in a fast-moving sale, you get a pinned down definitive point. So the candidates that ask, what are our next steps, usually get the following answer. Our next steps are that I've got lots of other candidates to see and I'll come back to you. This is how the candidates that get the jobs do it. They get their notepad, the one in which they drew a line down the middle of the page, and they say, okay, let's do a little bit of a summary here. This is a very unsophisticated way of doing it, but it works. So you told me you were looking for the following things. 1, the ability to win new business and generate appointments. 2, somebody who could prove that they were good at hitting targets. 3, somebody who knew the market. 4, etc., etc. And we covered them, and you were happy with that, and you were happy with that, and you were happy with that, and you were happy with that. Question 1, is there anything I've missed? No. Are you sure? Yes. Great. And this is the key question you ask. Is there any reason you won't take this to the next stage? And the client says, no. And you say, great. When should we do it? At that point, you get your diary out of your bag and make the next appointment there and then. The candidates that get the next appointment, if you said to me, 2 candidates, one comes out the interview with the next appointment in his diary, and the other comes out with the client saying, I've got more candidates to see, I'll tell you who I'm going to bet's going to get the job. So let's go through it again. Summarize. Create your habitual agreement. Close and diarize. Habitual should say mutual. Apologies, slight typo on the slide, which we'll fix later. Create your mutual agreement, close and diarize. Let's talk about diarising the meeting. A lot of people feel embarrassed to do that. Okay, great. When do you want to do it? Dead simple, easy question to ask. I once went to a meeting with a colleague of mine, and at the time, they were very cheeky. We were a law firm selling to a group of partners, one of the Magic Circle law firms selling software. And the meeting came to an end, and the individual concerned went round the room and said, you happy yet? You happy? Everybody happy yet? Great. Any reason why we can't take this to the next stage and final demonstration? No. Great. Let's get it diarised. And the clients all sat there and said, oh, well, we'll have to talk to our secretaries. My colleague just sat there, opened up a laptop and went, I'll wait. And we were a small little player at the time. Nobody knew who we were. And we had no right to be in that room compared to the bigger players in the market. But the reason we won that deal was the cheeky smile with which my colleague opened up a laptop and went, I'll wait. And they all went, wait for what? And she said, I'll wait whilst your PAs all come down and we sort out the next meeting before I leave. And we sat in this meeting room. It took 4 hours. And after a while, PAs came in and we sorted it out. And we found a next appointment and we walked out of there with the next demo in the diary for 2 weeks hence. And we nailed a much bigger player. Getting the date in the diary matters. The candidate that walks out of the interview with a date in their diary and a definitive agreement for a next stage, they get jobs. They get the best jobs. They do a lot better than the candidate that walks out of an interview and says to me, oh yeah, Jonathan, yeah, he said he'd come back to me. Because I'll tell you what, you know, when you walk out of an appointment having been to see a customer and the customer says to you, yeah, I'll come back to you, you know you've had a bad day. So think about that. I know it's not easy. I know it's more brash than you ordinarily might be, but it's important to remember what we talked about at the start of this series of videos, which is it's a buying process for both parties. It's a strategic procurement, but it's sold in a tactical manner. And unlike the deals that you're used to working, which can sometimes be 6, 12, 18 months, this is done in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe 4, depending on the time of year. So the candidates that do well lock on to the speed and they close and sell accordingly to the time scale of the deal process of selling the solution that is themselves to the customers.